Good afternoon, all you rooters, cranks, birds, and bugs. This is Sam Tin Cans Pinkerton here on the old Squawk Box, and it's my esteemed pleasure to walk you through the first of what I'm sure will be many summer party museums. Please take your time and have a look around, but remember our 3 rules. No funny business, mind the velvet ropes, and don't take any wooden nickels. The very first summer party took place in the first year of the new century. President William McKinley had just won re-election, and the country was still recovering from the Great Fire of Jacksonville, Florida. As a result, Mark, Amy, and their friends decided to get together and tip a few. Who knew that this particular collection of ne'er-do-wells would become as thick as thieves and continue to gather as the years went on? The early years of summer party, unfortunately, coincided with the dawn of Prohibition. As a result, the Tippets were forced to run hooch out of their very own kitchen. Displayed, you'll see one of the original stills Mark used to confuse the boys in blue and to keep his party running unobserved. Once the wax cylinder went out of style, Amy and Mark had to find a new way to play the latest musical hits from Tin Pan Alley. As such, they used these compact diskettes, or so I'm told, to keep the birds and bugs dancing the night away. In addition, fresh off of his Monsters of the Megaphone tour, Marky brought home this tasty little loudspeaker after his big loss to Dickie Crickets in the semifinals. It still had a bit of juice in it, and his beanbag tourney announcements could be heard for miles. To help the folks whose peepers couldn't focus on a traditional calendar, these larger-than-life numbers were flown in by Mark. Now, even the most significantly sight-impaired had no excuse to miss the party, as they were constantly reminded of the date in bold typeface big enough to be read by King Kong himself. Of course, it's not uncommon for immature mugs to get their hands on these tiles and take inappropriate photos that would make the Pope blush, but it's all in good fun. As the summer party grew, the country became more unstable. The Chicago Teamsters strike was in full swing, and Leon Czolgosz had unfortunately done away with President McKinley. Amy, in her infinite wisdom, saw it necessary to offer Lincoln, Illinois with some form of stability. And so the Summer Party Council was created. Although their meetings were clandestine and held in the cellars of the most notorious speakeasies, the 5 people tasked themselves with keeping the party fresh and organized. Now that the party itself had been upgraded, it was time to give the old beansack tournament a goose. Competitors were made to feel like kings and queens with patches and engraved plaques when they proved they were the real McCoy on the field of play. A runaway victory would not only be the bee's knees, but future generations would see your moniker on the very boxes themselves. How's that for a sweet treat? And speaking of geese, take a gander at some of the oldest summer party scoring implements. You'll notice far fewer pairings on these boards, in tournaments that took place before the merger with the ABA, or American Bean Toss Association. Perennial All-Star Stopper Gervin, also known as the Iceman, famously refused the merger and never came back to claim his '05 championship patch in protest. When the talent pool further expanded to include professional beanbaggery, a traveling family of superstars took over the tourney. The Gallaghers were a nearly unstoppable force, winning trophy after trophy for nearly a decade. Tommy John, boldly named for the surgery for which he sent many of his competitors to undergo, completed the family's reign with back-to-back victories, at which point they took their talents to other tournaments, both international and intergalactic. We interrupt this tour for an important announcement. Howie Amberg has been spotted in the area. We repeat, there has been a confirmed Howie Amberg sighting in the vicinity. A former lounge lizard and occasional imbiber of the giggle juice, Howie should be approached with caution. Possible effects of exposure can include hearing an extensive rundown of the current status of the beanbag tournament, causing the listener to politely nod while searching the room for a door or open window. If approached, we suggest briefly shaking the man's hand before looking into the distance and exclaiming, "Georgie LaRue, is that you?" before briskly walking toward another partygoer. As a side note, all partygoers should be prepared to answer to the name Georgie LaRue. A great deal of people have made their way to the party grounds through the years, but unfortunately, with the onset of leprosy, barrel fever, and housewife's knee, not all of them can be with us today. On this plaque, you'll see the names of some of the fallen. Even though they've not made it back to Summer Party, they continue to live on in our hearts and minds. During the golden era of the summer party, the council put their heads together and came up with popular themes: the Flapper Girls Party, Summer Pot Deco, and Titanic, the Unsinkable Summer Party, which ended somewhat wetter than previously expected. Regardless, the creativity continued to soar as Summer Party hit its stride. In the early 20s, an unfortunate pandemic reared its head and took over the world. As a result, the party had to be postponed for a calendar year. Children across the area drew pictures to recreate the experience, while their parents found other ways to pass the time, with the most popular two avenues being 1, positively reflecting on the blessings they still had, and at number 2, endlessly screaming into a tear-stained pillow. Before you leave, please pay your respects to the Lincoln Outdoor Natatorium. This wonderful swimming pool always ensured that, quite literally, cooler heads would always prevail at Summer Party. It wasn't just an aquatic center, it was our most reliable and yet most inanimate friend. However, the following year, a jubilant but hesitant society returned to the party scene, and right on their heels was the Summer Party, new and improved, in beautiful Bloomington, Illinois. After 52 1/4 fortnights, people were able to gather and spread the Summer Party magic all over again, with new faces and new champions to celebrate. Food, glorious food, as someone famous would sing 48 years after I recorded this tour. Every summer party is a culinary marvel that gives everyone their chance to feel like the big cheese. The amount of delicious food that is brought from those in attendance is enormous, and yet we're always left wanting more. As you observe the Summer Party Hall of Fame, take a moment to consider its first member, the inimitable Papa Mike Blair. He's always willing to sit in on a bull session or poolside chat, yet he most often looks to speak only when he has something important to say. Mike has been the quiet, thoughtful leader this party simply couldn't do without. Believe you me, this gentleman is truly the cat's pajamas. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this audio tour. This has been Sam Tin Cans Pinkerton, and here's hoping you have a swell time at this swanky shindig.